The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Hi everyone, welcome to the final edition for this season of Your Box Seat. Yes, it has been brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Michael Guerin, we get a chance to wrap up the Autumn Carnival, which has been outstanding to be fair and dominated on the final night by an Australian.
Yep, it could be called the Australian Carnival, Greg. A big hi to you and to all our viewers on both sides of the Tasman, because they started their domination, of course, in the trotting ranks on Race by Grins Night, of Night of Champions at Cambridge. And I think last Friday night would be the biggest double in Australian history on New Zealand soil. Now, there was an Inter-Dominion back in 1983 where we had something similar, but this was one stable, Jess Tubbs, one driver, Greg Sugars, and two horses who we know so well over here. Well done to them. It was a very special double. Let's get into it, Gregory. And later on, I'm looking forward to your chat. You're going to talk to the boss, the president of the Auckland Trotting Club, Jamie McKinnon, about a really, really interesting time in the club's history and heading into the future. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Jamie's got to say.
Absolutely. We've got a lot on the show for you, so what can you look forward to? We'll wrap up Auckland Cup night. Trillion Trust, of course, the sponsor of that, and the Reharvest Road Cup night. It was a sweet trip to New Zealand for the man they call the Candy Man. Former New Zealand Cup champion retired off the back of that Trillion Trust Auckland Cup. We'll have that ATC update. 7 wins in a night off the back of winning 5 the previous week for JR Dunn. We'll cross the Tasman with our good friends from Garrards, and we'll be thanking everyone for their great support over the last 4 years of Your Box Seat. But let's get to the big one, the Trillion Trust Auckland Cup. First run in 1890. Here was the all-important start. Better Eclipse on the outside, tardily away, as was Old Town Road. Thought this might have been crucial, but in the end it didn't matter. What was crucial was when we transitioned this, American Me settled in front of Kango and Alta Meteor. But right about the 400 metre mark, Michael, things went pear-shaped clearly for the Mark Shard team. Right there, it could easily have gone that way for Better Eclipse as well. Off the back of this, we'll get to the interviews, but right here, he had to run down a 2-time Auckland Cup winner, Michael, and Self-Assured.
Look, he's had no luck for 2 New Zealand campaigns. Finally, the luck went with him and against others, but he came from second last to win an Auckland Cup. Not an easy thing to do. Here's Greg Sugars, Jess Tubbs and Better Eclipse taking home Alexandra Park's biggest race.
Better Eclipse will get the win. Better Eclipse to beat Self-Assured. Third across Republican Party, then Old Town Road.
Greg, enormous performance because you gave him a decent start.
Yeah, that's right. No, a little bit of nervous moments at the start where he didn't quite get the start right this time around, but luckily he gathered himself quite quickly and yeah, worked out well after that.
Take me through the run because you got back in the field after messing away, but you got a decent run after that. Probably just had to navigate a bit of traffic at about the 400 when Max Shard went off stride. Yeah,
that's right. When I landed his back early, I thought, oh, this is good. I'm following a horse that's going to take me where I need to be. But yeah, it all went pretty pear-shaped around the 400 metre mark where he struck trouble. And yeah, nervous moments then to see what was going to happen out of that and if we could get round safely, which we did. And at that point in time, I wasn't confident of winning that far out, but I knew I was going to be right there in the fight. You had Mark Purdon to your inside on Self-Assured. We know he's a war horse, but probably got to him very quickly. He really accelerated. He sure did. You know, he really felt on song tonight, and you know, much more like his old self. You know, been wrapped with all his runs over here with not much luck, but you know, I just thought he hadn't been quite as sharp as what I know he's capable of being in his last couple. But tonight, he really felt switched on. Geez, Mark, you loomed up like you'll win another Group 1.
Yeah, well, he got the perfect trip or drag into the race, and round the corner he just turned up at the right time, and I thought it was going to be his, and yeah, but the Aussie was just too good down the outside.
Take me through the running because he seemed to get a good trip from about the mile onwards, and he seemed to be really travelling.
Yeah, well, I sort of came out when I could hear the others coming, and then Tim popped out in front of me, which gave him a beautiful trip, and sort of had a look at the front, and that probably just took its toll on the leader at that point. So, as I say, coming round the corner and, you know, off out of the 1-1, I thought he was a winner.
Yeah, well, he has won on many occasions, so that's not surprising, Mark. We'll talk about him in a moment, Michael, but the winner very good, and I'm really pleased that he got a Group 1 here in New Zealand because he really hasn't had a lot of luck. Republican Party, very good. Old Town Road needs to get the starts right because that probably cost him. And, of course, the unlucky Mark Shard, things just not going the way they wanted to at about the 400-metre mark, but he's had a great campaign.
He has. Let's start with the winner. First of all, chance favours the brave. I mean, a lot of Australian horses were touted to come to the race by Grins. Greg and Jess and their owners have turned up 2 years in a row, and then they've stuck around. Now, the only reason he stuck around was because Just Believe was sticking around, but they're still here. You can't win races you're not entered in. And we have a lot of chat about who's going to go here and who's coming to Addington, but they've proven they're going to turn up. Big effort turning up in a 2 mile standing start race, which is not really their forte. He found exactly the right Auckland Cup because the 27-7 down the back meant the leaders and some of the horses who are a bit more tired couldn't stick on, so they drop out. Then it became a swoopers race, very clearly. Self-Assured 2 years ago would have won, but that's not the Self-Assured he was 2 years ago. He's not anymore, and hence why he's been retired. Go back one more space, Mark Shard I think would have won had he not galloped. I don't know that, but I think he would have, because on their form over the autumn, Better Eclipse wouldn't have run past him. But it's a pacing race, you've got to stay at your gate. And then you get back to Better Eclipse. That's him to a T. Follow the speed. He came out, he was really strong to the line, which means Greg and Jess from afar, and the people helping them at Stonewall Stud have done a really good job, Greg. They've kept this horse up and happy for a bloody long time. It's a long time since the race by Grins. And then Old Town Road, put him 2 spots further forward, maybe he wins the race. But he travelled the furthest, did a thing he's not used to doing, standing start 2 mile races, and he won. And now we can say to ourselves, first leg of a great double, but also, Greg, you and I have to say to ourselves, and probably our viewers at home, what do we do with the Auckland Cup now? Because that's not good enough for the Auckland Cup. By no means disparaging the winning performance. Yep. But that's not good enough for what used to be our second biggest harness race. Now, very clearly, it's only 3rd or 4th. And I think it needs a date change, because when the field is that field, and there's no Merlin, and there's no Don't Stop Dreaming, it's not our fault there's no Akuta or Millwood Nike. They might come back next season. But Greg, we can't keep running the Auckland Cup in the last week of May. It was freezing there the other night. Nobody wanted to be there, and I get the feeling watching that race, half the horses didn't want to be there.
Yeah, agreed. I think it'll come a lot closer to the race by Grins. I think that's the logical thing.
If you do that, question for you, if you do that, should it be 2 mile stand, which isn't everybody's cup of tea?
Nah, 27 mobile.
27 mobile?
In my opinion.
Okay.
That's what I'd do. And then you can have the Messenger Taylor Mile, whichever way round, not far after that, and then it's done.
At 110,000, they don't matter too much.
No, that's right, but then it's done.
And it could almost mean that the Kangos or the Mark Shards or whoever can target those races, maybe without a leap to fame next season, or Don't Stop Dreaming.
And if there's more Aussies, if it's a 2700 mobile, they're more likely to stay. Obviously, if it's a week or so later, they'll definitely stay. Yeah.
Yeah, but bizarrely, as it turned out, this crop being what it is, Leap to Fame, Swayze, both being aimed or have won a New Zealand Cup 2 mile standing start, Better Eclipse. I don't think the 2 mile standing start actually puts as many people off.
It's just the length of time.
I think it's going to be.
They've got to stick around.
Yeah. Anyway, look, the story is, it's a great win and a great first leg to a double, because after we saw that, I think everybody knew what was coming next.
All right, we need to wrap up Self-Assured's career. I'd love to have more time to do it, but this is the last show. But here is his biggest win in the IRT New Zealand Trotting Cup of 2020. At this stage, he was, I'm not going to say unbeatable, Michael, but he was just way too good for this lot, including Spankham. He's been a brilliant racehorse. His statistics tell the story, Michael. He's won close to $2.5 million. He's been beautifully trained and handled by the All-Stars. He's had various drivers drive him, Mark, Natalie, predominantly Mark, and there's probably the most important person involved in this horse, and James Stevens, along with Gene Feast, obviously. There's his stats. 70 starts, 63 times in the money, Michael. Look at those Group 1s, all the way back to the Queensland Derby. He's won a race by Grins, the inaugural running of that, an all-important inaugural running of the Roy Purdon. He won't be declared a champion, but he's been a hell of a racehorse.
He has been. He reminds me a lot of Christopher Vance, a horse who raced in the late 1980s and in 1991, because he won a lot of the same races, Auckland Cups, New Zealand Cups. Christopher Vance won a Miracle Mile. This horse didn't, but a race by Grin swaps out nicely for that. Never a horse who could go sit parked and beat them up. That was never self-assured. Beautifully mannered horse though, wonderful swooping horse. Of course, he's come from last to win 3 major races. Christopher Vance came from last to win a Miracle Mile. Very similar horses. And those horses don't often get called champions because they don't have that warrior thing. They don't tend to win a lot of races by huge margins. But 2 or 3 times, Greg, when I thought he was down and out, he's come from last to win the New Zealand Free-for-All. And he's beaten proper horses doing it. Like he came from last to beat a Kuta this year. He also came from last to win a race by Grins. It's a dying skill coming from last to win races. We saw it at the Auckland Cup more or less the other day. But he's won 3 major races in the last 2 years when I'm pretty convinced he wasn't at his best, coming from last, Gregory. So, wonderful horse. I'm so glad he's retiring to Jimmy. So the other Jimmy, of course the horse is named Jimmy after the first Jimmy, James Stevens. Spoke to James last night. He said he's going to stay just down the road from where James lives, and he's going to be stable with a mate of his there, and they're going to bring him back to the farm every day, and the boys who ride the gallopers at Mark and Nathan Purdon's are going to break him into the saddle, and then James is going to ride him around. Him and his old mate are going to be able to go for a cruise around from time to time. So he's going to be as well looked after as any horse in the history of harness racing who's retired, Gregory. Really cool story. Well done to James. Well done to Jean for allowing it to happen. And this horse, of course, was part of Jean's life at a really tough time.
Yep.
When her husband Bill passed away. So she said to me, he's been really special to me. And it's been a special story. Maybe not a total champion on the racetrack, but I think a champion of lots of people's hearts in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yep, certainly. Well said, Michael. The double that you mentioned earlier was this, Just Believe. Here's the start again, all importantly. How they settled, 1, 2, 3. They finished 2nd, 3rd and 4th, but the crucial part to the race, Michael, is we just show enough footage here to see Greg Sugar's look up. He's got Muscle Mountain behind him. Mark Purdon's in front on Oscar Bonavina, and he just comes off the wheel here, and you know he's going forward. He knows he's going to get the lead, and once he gets there, as we transition to the closing stages and then hear from Greg Sugars, you knew he was going to win, Michael, home in a very, very quick last half.
Yeah, well, he earned that respect. He earned the respect that means you get the lead in Group 1 races when you want to get it. Here is the completion of a remarkable autumn domination by this horse.
He makes the perfect raid on New Zealand. 2 Group 1s, the inaugural TAB Trot. Good on you, Harry. Wonderful win in the Road Cup, Just Believe. Second over was Oscar Bonavina. They were followed then by Midnight Dash up for 3rd.
Greg, another outstanding performance, another Group 1 win for the champion. How did he feel for you tonight?
Yeah, no, very good. You know, it was quite a soft victory for him. It's seems a hard thing to say in a race of the calibre of a Road Cup, but once he was able to find the front, he was travelled very well and did it comfortably.
You did get away from them cheap sectionals, and they really never pressured you till probably around about the 600 metre mark. You had Oscar Bonavina on your back. I'm sure you could see Mark in the corner of your eye.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, he was hard up on my helmet the whole way, so I knew he still had some horsepower offer up the straight, and he dug deep, and we couldn't really shake him off by much this time around. So full credit to this team. They had him on song tonight, but thankfully we were good enough to get the job done.
Let's talk about Jess and what she's done with this horse over the last 2 years and where it's taken you, because, I mean, it's obviously taken you all parts of the world. You've ended up in New Zealand, you've won a trot slot, you've now won a Road Cup. You're kind of living the dream, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. No, as far as trotting goes, it doesn't get much better than this fella, and the ride he's taken this on. So no, Jess done a wonderful job with him. In the last couple of years, he's just sort of taken all before him, and full credit to the horse, really. I don't think Jess and I do anything, that out the box with him to make him as good as he is. He is just a phenomenal animal and a pleasure to have around.
Can we talk you in coming back next year?
Definitely a possibility. Yeah, if we're in this good a form still next year, touch wood, everything going well. yeah, I can't see why we wouldn't be back.
I know Nicole touched with you on a pleasure it's been having you here, but just for the public, and obviously having a horse like this, it adds so much to our industry. You've been a pleasure to deal with in the media, and we thank you so much for your time.
No worries, guys. Thoroughly enjoyed my time over here. Everyone's made us feel extremely welcome, and yeah, it's just been amazing.
Mark, you got a lovely toe into the race from about the mile and a half again. You got halfway beautifully, trailed the right one, and gee, I thought again at the top of the lane you were a chance of winning.
Yeah, I probably never thought that, Greg. I think I'll run into a champion, and that's what he is. And, you know, just happy to run second. And I thought Oscar was probably the best he was over the last 3 runs, and he certainly went a good race, run an easy second.
What do you do with him now?
He'll have a well-earned break now and then get ready for sort of November Cup time.
So 4 from 4 for Just Believe. Spoke to Greg Sugars on SENZ Trots Talk yesterday. Both he and Better Eclipse Michael in the paddock now for a month, so no Queensland Carnival. Said to him, Just Believe maybe for the Renwick Farms Dominion. He said, it's a possibility, but that Inter-Dominion's only 2 weeks after that. It's New South Wales, it's various tracks that you've got to travel around, so I doubt he'll be there, and he's $1.25 to win the Dominion, but let's focus on what he's achieved in New Zealand. He's proven that he is a champion.
Yeah, it's been great fun watching him win. The races themselves outside the TAB Trot haven't been very competitive, because he's been too good for Oscar Bonavena the 2 times he's led. The time against Muscle Mountain was fun for about a lap, but in the end it was a pretty hollow victory. He's just developed into a wonderful horse. When you go back over his record, he was a good horse, and obviously he got better when he joined Jess and Greg, but he's got better since then. Like, he's very fluid in his gait. He doesn't use a lot of energy around the barn. He doesn't make life hard on himself. And he's too good for all of these horses. Call Me the Breeze, who beat him in the Great Southern Star, will beat him on some occasions, one would think, from time to time. I'm not sure Oscar Bonavena's going as good as he can, and Muscle Mountain absolutely isn't. That isn't excuse making for the Kiwis. Oscar Bonavena hasn't really looked very sharp since that night at Addington where he dropped out. He's been okay, but he hasn't looked himself, and Muscle Mountain clearly isn't. He barely ran past a horse the other day. So take Just Believe out of that race. Muscle Mountain's finished 4th. So clearly, it's still going to be in hope. They said, we're going to take him home and start again. And that's what you're going to do sometimes. So yes, this horse would have won regardless. I'm absolutely certain of that, Greg. But I also think this New Zealand open class crop is in a real state of flux. I'm not sure where they're at. I think both the big guns have had adequate autumns at best, and I think there's no depth behind them. So if this horse doesn't come for the Dominion, gee, to be tempting to bring Call Me the Breeze or something like that. Gee, to be tempting.
Which is good for the race.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Bet and win might be a big hope, Michael. You keep saying it.
Well, my views on Trans-Tasman harness racing are well known. It's too small an industry to survive by itself. Don't get me wrong, Cup Week's Cup Week. It'll be massive regardless. But if you get Leap to Fame there and Just Believe or Call Me the Breeze, that really helps. The best decision this team made, and I had some heated discussions with people about this, because everybody who goes to the Elite Lot wants to go back to the Elite Lot because it's in Sweden, it's really good fun. But they were very smart about this, Jason and Greg. They chose not to go back to the Elite Lot. Now that was run overnight, and the horse who won it absolutely smashed them, obliterated them.
Horsey Dream,
yes,
pretty cool name.
Very good horse who missed the Elite Lot last year. So it's a better horse than the horses this horse raced in the Elite Lot last year. And as brave as his campaign was last year, it was very brave. He didn't win a race.
Yep.
And what they've done is, rather than going to all that expense, they've come over here, less taxing on the horse. He'll be home in his own paddock on Wednesday, and they've won 460 grand. Now, it's all right for us to want to get on planes and go on trips, and I would have loved to have been in Sweden last night. I'd probably still be in a bar in Sweden right now if I was. But people like Greg and Jess and the owners have bills to pay.
Yep.
And at some stage, you're going to monetise these horses. So they made the right choice. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Not only did they make the right choice, but as much as you can't know this definitively, once you see last night's Elite Lot, you go, well, they wouldn't have.
What'd they go, Michael? 49.5 or near enough to it?
49 and change.
Yep.
On a 1,000-metre track, but the horse who won was so good, there's no beating it for Just Believe. One would think. They made the right choice. They have nailed it. And here's the thing. If Just Believes in Sweden, they don't win the Auckland Cup.
No, they don't.
So it's a no argument performance. They've banked about $600-something thousand in the last 6 weeks, and they haven't had to leave the Southern Hemisphere.
Yeah. Terrific performance by them, and it's been great to have Just Believe here. Let's go to the 3-year-old trotting feature with Brecon Farms. They sponsor the Northern Trotting Derby. In a single moment, got the job done. Unlucky, no question about that. Phil Williamson sitting in the trail, getting badly held up. I don't know that Empire City went as well as what she could, because right here she could have dashed through. Excellent run from the runner-up. Looked to the stars, improved after galloping last time. But here's Tony Cameron, now a Group 1 winning driver, and in a single moment.
Single moment, a photo second between Empire City, very unlucky, or Look to the Stars, then Lucky Mum.
Tony, outstanding performance in a single moment. She just showed that great speed again.
Yeah, she's really good. We ended up getting a bloody good trip, and she's, like you say, she's got some good turn of foot, and it worked out really good.
Take me through the run, because you were about 3 back on the outside, and there was a lot unfolding in front of you. There was a little bit of pressure on from about the 600. You made your move, and what did you kind of think at the point of the turn that you thought, geez, I'm with a winning chance here?
Yeah, she's still travelling good there on the point of the bend, but there's some good horses inside her, and it wasn't until we sort of crossed the line I thought, oh, we've got that.
Tony Cameron, I mean, Tony Hurley's been a big major part of your life, and he's been a great boss, and he's put you on some very good horses, one of your favourite, Temporale, for a long time. Can this horse take you on a ride again?
Oh, I really hope so. Yeah, Tem was really good to me. And like you say, Tony and Suzanne been big supporters of mine the whole way through since I started working there, so that's been a real big help too.
The man they call Weenie, Michael, is now a Group 1 winning driver.
Popular guy, really popular win, even though the favourites were beaten, because everybody likes Tony. He's cut his teeth sometimes doing the Cambridge trips that the other Tony didn't want to do, and he's always been great with the trotters. And he's found himself a horse who is very well mannered and likes to follow speed. And yes, Empire City was unlucky, and losing momentum, I think, at the end of a 2,700 metre race is less than ideal. I agree with you. When she rushed forward about the 200, it looked like she could have gone on to win, but I'm wanting to think the horses coming down the outside had enough momentum up. But lovely filly this. And look, she only had the one run last season, Greg. So she's come back in. This is only her second campaign. That's a big job. If you had told people 8 weeks ago this horse could beat Empire City, they would have said, oh, mate, forget about that. Have you seen Empire City? Well, she did. And that's how it works sometimes when you get the right run. Very similar to the Better Eclipse thing. The leaders came back to it a little bit and swooped on past them. She's well bred. Her older sister, Monarch Hill, is a good horse. I think the Hurleys and Chanel Lawson, who worked for Tony for a long time and is in this horse, has done some photography in harness racing, is a really nice, bright young lady. She's also in the ownership. I'm thrilled for everybody involved. It was a really feel-good win, Gregory, even if the punters didn't enjoy it so much. And what's that one thread you're seeing from the 3 races we just showed you? Mark Purdon finished second
in each one. Yeah. Not a normal thing.
No, that wouldn't have happened. In fact, I would suggest, hasn't happened many times in New Zealand history. A trainer driver has finished second in 3 Group 1s in a night.
Can't think of one.
And definitely not that trainer driver.
No, exactly. Still a very good effort, but yeah, not winning one of those. Here's another good effort. 45th running of the Pell Transport North Island Breeders. Really smart work here by Tony Thomas. She's been up and down the country. She's got a new name though. Aaron White's nailed this. I thought, what's he doing? It's Boudica. But I rang Tony today and he said, no, it's Boudica. I said, Tony, that's her 75th start and you've just told us that now? He said, yeah, it's Boudica, but I don't really care what you call her as long as you're talking about her. That means she's performing.
Yep, and look, she's just a lovely little racehorse. One of those horses who, I suppose our harness racing's on the back of, Gregory. They're not all stars. Some of them just turn up every week in the wet and the cold and great from a standing start. She just turned up to work again and good on her. Lovely drive by Andre, didn't panic when he couldn't get the lead. She was the proven standing start horse in the race, Greg, and there's a lot to be said for putting horses in the right race. So that was good training from Tony. I have no idea what a Boudica is, but hey, congratulations to Aaron. He got it right.
Yeah, absolutely he did, and he nailed most of those calls, or all of them that I can think of, over the entire carnival. And you mentioned Smoke on the Water winning the Country Cups up there. Smart move, sending the horse up. Well done to Tony. As you mentioned earlier, Michael, I got a chance to catch up with Jamie McKinnon, who was actually in Australia, to talk about the Auckland Trotting Club and where it is at in financial terms. As we know, they've been in a bit of trouble. Very kindly joined on the box seat by the boss of the Auckland Trotting Club, Jamie McKinnon. Before we get into some matters that a lot of people will be interested in, let's talk about this autumn carnival that's just been completed and the success of it, and the Australian involvement, probably more than anything, off the back of Friday night was massive, wasn't it?
Well, it's always good if you can get the Australian connections here. It's a bit like, in Auckland, we like to look forward to the southern horses coming up, but if we can get the Australians over here, then you hit the jackpot, and they hit the jackpot by winning both the features on Friday night. Of course, that's a good thing for not just for Auckland, but for harness racing in general in New Zealand, because it means that they can really believe that they can come across and they can win our features. And we saw that with Swayze down your way, and now with the two big ones going away on Friday night. I mean, how good is that? I mean, you like to think the locals will get a share of it, but it's a good message that you can come to New Zealand and win our big races. So I think it's a lot of positive energy around it.
Yeah, Jamie, history made. Greg Sugar's driving both winners. Obviously, better eclipse in the Trillion Trust Auckland Cup and in the Reharvest Row Cup, Just Believe. But let's focus on Just Believe. And you're a trotting purist. You won a race on the night yourself with Kiss and Run. Very, very special to see this horse that's been around the world now and has now shown New Zealanders just how good he is.
Yeah, I mean, he's by French sire Olivici, and sorry, not Olivici, Orlando Vici, isn't he?
Yeah.
Orlando Vici, yeah,
Correct.
I should know.
Yep. Correct.
And I'm on holiday, Greg, so my mind's not quite there. And he's $10,000, and it was a big punt for anyone to put their mare to a $10,000 sire who really hadn't done it in Australia or New Zealand. And they only get better with age. And this horse probably has got a good couple of years ahead of him. And it's a terrific advertisement for the French sires that are, you don't quite know what to do. The Muscle Hills and the Father Patricks, but in New Zealand we've had Love You being successful, but there's a lot of the French sires that haven't been, and probably encourage breeders to maybe have another look, particularly those that are reasonably priced.
Yeah, absolutely. So a terrific carnival. Really enjoyed the coverage out of Alexandra Park. But let's talk more things Auckland Trotting Club, and it's been a challenging, I'm going to say last decade, to be absolutely fair. We need an update, Jamie, in terms of where the property's at, where Pukekohe's at, and I know you can't put too fine a point on it because there's still a bit of water to go under the bridge, but can you give us an update?
Sure, Greg. Well, this time last year we were talking about a sale. We had $1.5 million deposit in the bank on a $100 million purchase, and 1.5 million, that's a lot of money for all of us. For the purchasers is probably as good as a lunch. And you think, well, we've got a deal here. And then since then we've got another check for 8.5 mil, so I've got 10 million in the bank. And that gives you confidence that this deal's going ahead. And we have every confidence to think that it will. I mean, there's still another 90 million due in November. We're in regular contact with the purchasers. They're on the property probably next week. They'll be out there. They're on their engineers. So all indications are that that's going ahead. I know that I hear a rumour out there that it's not, but if anyone should know, I should know. And I've not heard anything that they're not interested. I mean, why would they be out on the property? Why would they be spending money?
So this is the Pukekohe property. This is Franklin Park.
Yeah. This is the Franklin Park here. So, yeah, I mean, as we all know, a deal's not done till you got the money, but all indications are that it's all proceeding. So, it's only another few months to go, and then we can turn the page and start to make some plans, which we already are making plans, of course, because, we've got to think about where is the next training centre. We've done quite a lot of work on that. We've looked at quite a few options. One of the problems in Pukekohe is the soil is quite valuable, and it's called highly productive soil. So it's hard to set up a training centre. You can set up a private training centre, but we're not a permitted use in the Franklin area. So a lot of the properties we're looking at, there's quite a few hoops to jump through. And so we're starting to look outside of the Franklin area as well. And there's another property we're looking at Maramarua. That looks promising. Had a meeting with the Franklin trainers and drivers a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about that opportunity. It was mostly in favour with them. It's not that far to go from where they are. And as far as State Highway 1, which is the all-important, freeway to Cambridge or Auckland, it's only 12 minutes from there. And the Pukekohe complex is 10 minutes. So there's not a lot of difference. The main difference is where you live and how long it takes you from where you live to get to this particular property. So that's a front runner at the moment. Doesn't have the obstacles that a lot of the properties do in Franklin, Paramahoe area. So yeah, that could be it. But we've got our options open. The best option is what we're going to go for. We'll be consulting with not just the members of the club, but also all the Franklin people before we make any decisions.
Jamie, you also have recently done a deal on the stand, one of the stands at Alexandra Park.
So a couple of years back, as part of digging ourselves out, but let's face it, 3 or 4 years ago, we were gone for all money. What were we going to do? We didn't have too many options. And a company from Australia came along and said, look, would you consider selling us a block of land? Now, would we? Well, we needed to do something, and that was a way out. And they bought that block of land, which is right up to Green Lane Road and up to the track where the old Epsom stand was. That's currently being demolished, and we sold that for 51 million. And that took us a long way to getting bank support and digging ourselves out of what the problems that we had.
So let's put it in layman's terms. The position of the Auckland Trotting Club, subject to that being finalised in November with the purchase of Franklin Park, is in a darn sight better position than what it was last time we talked.
Well, yeah, absolutely. We've got more money. The purchases are still there, and they're in frequent contact. So we're hoping that's done, and then the club can focus without having the weight of the banks, over your head all the time. It's not a pleasant experience, and it's one that I wake up to every day. And you've just got to try and put that to the side and think positively and go forward. And the industry's starting to get highly motivated again. We've got Entain there as a great partner. It's giving us all hope there's a decent future, and we've got to make the most of that future. So once we get this deal done, then Auckland's got to think about, well, what's next for us? Well, firstly, we've got that training centre. But I think, Greg, we've also got to think about how can we best support the industry and support Entain. And we all know that Auckland can never turn over on a Friday night what Methven can do on a Sunday, or what Reefton can do for that matter. It's just something that those Sunday meetings and country meetings do attract bigger fields, more betting, and we can get the field, we can run the feature races and get the betting, but not at that level, not every day that they can do it. So our job is to try and grow the business, and by giving people a special on-course experience. And that means raising the bar in hospitality. So that's one of our projects for the new year, is to think about what have we got to do to compete with what's happening on a Friday night, where those new customers that we want, where they currently are. We know where they are, so we just got to get them to our place regularly on Friday night. I mean, you can get people out on a cup night and a derby night, but we're running a business 52 weeks of the year, so that's not going to be good enough to have a big promotion and get a big crowd on course. We need them there on a regular basis. So the bright lights, the big boxes, and selling jugs of beer is not going to cut it. We've got to look at, what does a cocktail list look like? What's the range of champagnes? So we've got to get to that level, and that's one of our ambitions for the new year.
It sounds very positive, Jamie. Really appreciate you coming on the box seat and for your support, your club support over the last 4 years to enable us to deliver what we have. The platform's certainly been essential to help promote the sport. So without your support and the other clubs and other sponsors, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So thank you for that, and thank you for your time today on the box seat too.
Greg, if I can just say in parting, it's been a pleasure working with you and Mick. We're privileged as an industry to have two professionals like you two. I know you had to work hard to keep this show going. It was very easy for the club to support it. And as I say, it's been great working with you, and the industry certainly is blessed to have you guys doing what you do and bringing your stories that you do to the industry. Thanks, mate.
So that was Jamie McKinnon. Michael, I thought it was important that we update particularly the Northerners, but all the harness racing fraternity for that matter, because Auckland's been in a bit of strife, but it's sounding like they're heading in the right direction.
Well, financially, there's light at the end of the tunnel if the deal for the Franklin track is done and signed and they get the money from the new owners. So that's good. I don't think people in harness racing realise how close that was to Alexandra Park closing, which would have been a disaster for harness racing. I can't emphasise how much of a disaster it would be. It is the centre of the biggest city in New Zealand with the most punters, and it's under-indexed badly. It was close. The bank had the option to foreclose. The bank stayed the course with the ATC. They had a lot of help from Graham Harford, the lawyer, who did a super job, and a lot of people did really boring work in paperwork in little rooms, and they'll never get trophies for it, but they kept it going. Now heading forward, they need to find a training track. We know that. I don't know anything about training tracks. I hope the right people do this. It's gutting that it's got to where it's been. It's gutting what could have been a $150 million windfall for this club will never happen. And still part of me is really pissed off, Greg. That's something I love dearly, has been savaged so badly over the last 5 years, particularly by people who aren't going to be held accountable. People who are no longer at the club, or people who own firms they then close down. It pisses me off. But we have to move on. And Entain have said they want Auckland harness racing to be strong. They said they want to make it a regular part of the Friday night platform for Friday night lights alongside Addington. That's good support. And I'm glad to hear from Jamie they're going to put more effort into making it a pleasant race night experience for people, because it's dropped off its perch. And they need to invest in that, Greg, because at the moment it's just okay. And if it's going to be a premier track, as Entain are telling us it is, then it needs to have a premier level of service. So maybe light at the end of the tunnel, but how the hell we ended up so deep in this tunnel still makes me shake my head. It is one of the away from human tragedy, that's always the most important. It's one of the saddest things I've been involved in my 35 years professionally in racing.
Well, let's hope that it is going in the right direction. Sounds like it is. Speaking of directions, we need to take a quick break. On the other side, we'll come back and catch up with John Dunn, because last week he was in 7 heaven. And welcome back in to your box seat. Here it was, Michael, win number 7 aboard Dynasty, a very smart filly out of the Bob Butt barn, creating a bit of history there last Thursday night. Kicked it all off with Bruntwood Brigade in the first and then Frazzled in the second, both 2-year-olds getting the Entain bonus as well. But the previous week, Michael, John Dunn drove 5 winners for the first time at Addington Raceway. A week later, less than that, 6 days, he drives 7. He now leads the Drivers' Premiership by 2 over Blair Orange, and quite clearly he's keen to have a decent crack at winning a title that his brother won 10 times and emulated what he'd done by winning 7 races alongside the likes of the great A.G. Hurley.
Wonderful, nice driving. And look, John has just improved and improved and improved, and he's put his own stamp on their horses and creates fear in other drivers, because they know when he's in front, he's not going to hand up to an inferior horse, and they know he's not scared to go forward and attack for the lead. He's turned into a good driver. He's become a complete all-round horseman, and one of the most important horse people in New Zealand to be the code, because he's a huge part of the training operation, but he's also driving now 7 winners a night. I take my hat off to him, because he grew up in Dexter's shadow when I'm talking about the early part of their driving careers, because Dexter's shadow was so big. And he may still be one of our greatest, if not our greatest driver, Dexter. But John has never let that bother him. He's just gone about doing things his own way. He drives different from Dexter, but still thoroughly supports his brother and jumps on the Meadowlands website to see how Dexter's going. What a wonderful twosome they've been from a wonderful harness racing family. I don't think there's anybody in harness racing who spent any time with John isn't incredibly proud of not just what the stable's doing, but what he's become as a man. So, and he's been through some tough times off the track in the last 5 years. He's been through some bloody tough stuff. Without trying to sound condescending, I think myself, yourself, and a lot of people in this game are very proud of him. And our apologies, we couldn't get an interview on the night. Of course, that was Thursday at Addington, and then we tried to get him on Friday, but he had a lot of obligations on the track, and he was covered in Alexandra Park by the time the last race came around. But John, congratulations to you.
Yeah, absolutely. That Drivers' Premiership now sees him on top. 80 wins there ahead of Blair Orange. Had Blair on the radio yesterday, and I put it to him, is this motivating you to drive yourself to make sure you win another premiership? He said, it's probably what I need. It's probably a very good motivational factor. He said, I'd love to see John win a driver's premiership, but I don't want to see him beat me. That's pretty much it, Michael. Tim Williams driving great. Sam Otley, Nathan Williamson, some pretty important names just below them too.
Well, and when you consider it, it goes hand in hand with the stable also leading the premiership for the trainings as well. As I said, it's a hell of an achievement. So yes, not many people can say, my brother once drove 7 winners in a day, so then I went out and did it too. And technically, I think John's was better because it was at Addington.
Yeah, the only time I know of someone driving 7 at Addington. You spoke of that Trainers' Premiership. So here it is, and Diamond Racing, well, they won 7 on the night as well. Ironically, Blair Orange drove Andy Hall to win for them. 21 in front, Michael. 21 in front. They're now $1.30 favourites to beat Team Telfer. And because of the numbers they're racing over winter, they could be 30, maybe 40 in front by the time the spring comes round and Team Telfer really fire up.
Well, Team Telfer obviously have a lot of horses in the north, and there's not a lot of racing opportunities here in the north over the winter, smaller fields. Yeah, I think the premiership's theirs to lose. Just on the premiership, both the drivers, Zach Butcher, courtesy partially of Merlin, but a wonderful season, having won the most money, and Barry Purdon and Scott Phelan there again, having won the most money. Now, yes, Merlin helps that, I get that, but it's also become from a lot of other horses too, so they are two of the strike rate and financial stars of our premierships, albeit both the stable and Zach will have less opportunities in the next 3 months because Northern Harness Racing doesn't stop, Greg, but it's going to go into a pretty big hibernation, and there's virtually no major races for the next 3 months. Leaving Alexandra Park on Friday night, I think there's a few people pretty happy about that, Greg. That autumn carnival was fantastic and everybody loved it, but it took a lot out of people. I reckon there's a lot of Northerners thinking about the Gold Coast or Fiji or wherever they go.
Yep, exactly, Michael. Junior Drivers Premiership, Carter Delgetti, $2, $2.40 Wilson House and Sam Thornley at $4.50, who I thought was almost backable. Let's go across the Tasman with Garrards. Here's the reigning IRT New Zealand Cup winner in Swayze, returning to the track, 152.1, beating Simply Sam, Max Delight and Narano. He's kept up to his work here by Cam Hart, but he was impressive and he makes his way to Queensland now, Michael.
Yeah, the key here, 2,300 metre mobile, was whether they would go forward or not. So whether they would drive him cold or drive him hard. And as you can see from Cam driving him hard, look, he didn't beat a hell of a lot. I mean, Narano was back in the field, but we all know how good he is. He's a wonderful horse. And if he gets in front of Leap to Fame during the carnival in Brisbane, Leap to Fame will need to be awfully, awfully good to beat him. So that's going to depend on barrier draws, as it pretty much has so far in their careers. But yeah, look, if he comes back for the New Zealand Cup, he's going to bring a lot of eyeballs with him. And if Leap to Fame comes with him, Gregory, that's going to be a real promotional bonus. Not so much for drawing people from Addington or from Christchurch to the races. They don't care about that stuff.
But others.
Well, eyeballs on Sky.
Yep.
Really, that's how it's going to be. Turnover, all the stuff that comes with it, some media coverage. So yeah, let's hope both of them or one of them comes back. But first, they've got a few Barneys to get down to during the Brisbane Carnival, and it's really good he's going to the Brisbane Carnival, because if he wasn't, Gregory, it'd be very much the Lowry show and pretty hard to get racked up about.
Yeah, exactly. These horses we're about to show you, Send It, these are just the next level down. The reason I'm showing you this is Albion Park's going to be a key focus over the winter. Send It wins this one, Kelly Dawson for Shane Graham. Turn It Up's very good. Northview Hustler right down the outside, we know him well. Smithy's Terror gets itself into 4th position. And Miracle Moose finishes 5th, so it was almost like an X-Pac Kiwis race, Michael. But yeah, Albion Park is certainly going to be a focus. Going there is this horse, the Lost Storm. Beats Yambucky in here. First up in a wee while he was. 1:53.9 the mile rate, so pretty quick time. Doesn't get there by much, and he's heading to feature racing in Queensland too, the Rising Sun.
Question for him is how much he's developed. I mean, very good 2-year-old, very good 3-year-old. Look at him there, there's not a lot of them. So yeah, how chesty and big and how strong he gets, it'll be interesting, because they're a team which has had great 2- and 3-year-old success, but haven't always had those horses progress on to 4, 5 and 6. So that carnival up north is going to be really interesting, because we know how good Leap to Fame is and we know how good Swayze is. What's going to be interesting is who emerges out of the Lost Storm and Frankie Ferocious and Extreme C to be the new challenger. Here is Extreme C. This is the state final in New South Wales. So they have heats, then they had 4 finals last week, and then this was the state final. And this is a very, very good horse. Wins by 25 metres. I think he's in the top 5 or 6 horses in Australasia, potentially, speed-wise, for David Hewitt and his son Brad. Down the outside's Foxy Dada getting second. He's just darn good. And he versus Frankie Ferocious in the Rising Sun could be one of the races of the carnival. Greg, I think it's going to be an excellent carnival there in Queensland. Maybe the one thing it might lack is a little bit of trotting firepower, but Call Me the Breeze, maybe. If he heads there, he could add a bit to it. And of course, Bet and Win from over in New Zealand is going to add something to it, with not big numbers heading across, Greg. But because we know Swayze and Leap to Fame and we have seen Extreme C on this show, I think there's going to be enough Kiwi interest in it, Greg, to give people some reason to tune in on a Saturday night, which Saturday night harness had sort of died off in this country because we had no coverage of it. But I believe, I'm not sure of this because I'm outside the family, but I believe there's going to be a push here to have regular Saturday night coverage with somebody in the studio in New Zealand. And I think that's really good. I think it's a dormant product that can be regrown and can also keep us interested in harness racing year round rather than really dropping off during the winter. So I think it's a positive move.
Yep, Frankie's $2.50 to win that, $3 for Extreme C, the Lost Storm $6, Petrarca at $8. We keep mentioning the IRT New Zealand Cup, and a key ingredient to that, Leap to Fame, going away from a standing start. Here he is at the trials, Michael. He takes a couple of strides to hit his hobbles. He wins this trial. We don't need to show you that. It was more importantly there, he just thinks about it, and well, he was away pretty comfortably there. That's very important leading into the Redcliffe Cup, and then ultimately for him to make the trip to the IRT New Zealand Cup.
Yeah, well, he needed to trial. I'm not sure that trial showed us anything, but it's qualified him, so he can go to the Redcliffe Cup, and that'll be interesting. But yeah, I mean, everything he does now is a case of, you know, is he happy and healthy? Because more often than not in those situations he'll win. I can't imagine he's going to be a bad standing start horse because he's such a well-gated and good-mannered horse, Greg. But yep, maybe there's some light at the end of the rainbow there for people hoping that if he bobbles away a Merlin or a Don't Stop Dreaming can get in front of him. But I'll tell you one thing I've really noticed over the last 6 weeks. There used to be a real Trans-Tasman thing in harness racing, dating back maybe 15 years, where we wanted to beat them and they wanted to beat us and people got really excited about it. I think people now have matured a little bit in that regard. I think people just like good horses. Like if Leap to Fame come and won the New Zealand Cup, I don't think anybody would go, oh, darn, the Aussies beat us. I really don't. And there definitely wasn't any of that was just belief. No. There was no, I think there's Trans-Tasman pride, but I don't think there's any, I don't know. Maybe
but it's also helped, Michael, by someone like Greg Sugars. No arrogance, nothing about that.
Dixon. Yep. And Grant Dixon, absolutely, and Nathan Jack. They're good talkers. They're good with
Chris
the media.
Vinocio, they're
exactly right. They've been. So I haven't seen that angst which you sometimes get. Which is great. Because the horses don't care where they're from.
No, absolutely.
I hope he comes to the New Zealand Cup Link to Fame. He'll legitimise the race this year. Not that the Cup itself needs legitimising, but what would happen is if he doesn't go, then whoever wins it, people can go, well, Leap to Fame
Would he have beaten
him?
Yep.
And to be perfectly honest, they're probably right.
Yeah, they probably are. Short break for us in our home straight on your final box seat of this season. It is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Holding it by 2.5. Brunswick Brigade, nice win. Brunswick Brigade and John Dunn start us off with a win.
Welcome back in to your box seat. Where can you go harness racing this week? Very important race meeting on Sunday. It's the last of the features, if you like, for Ashburton. They've got the $40,000 Helen Pope for the 2-year-old fillies, the $60,000 Sapling Stakes for the 2-year-olds, and the Champion Stakes for $30,000. Kicks off with Addington on Thursday night. They have a 10-race program there. 452, the first of those. Cambridge, the Waikato Bay of Plenty Harness Racing Club race Friday night, 5:26.10 there. Mentioned the Ashburton meeting, 12 o'clock on King's birthday weekend on the Sunday, and on that Monday, Invercargill race with their 10 races. So plenty of harness racing action for you to get involved in. About a month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, I had to have a game of golf against a friend of the show's, AJ Berry. Often provides us with photos. He bollocksed his way into getting a handicap that allowed him to win the game. I wanted to show you this though. Here is AJ on the 11th hole
Berry,
at the Templeton Golf Club. I'll let you take this
on the 11th. And as you see in front of him, we'll just go a little bit further. That's the ladies' tee just in front of us here. So he didn't really perform on this hole.
He didn't perform on that hole, Michael, but we made him famous around Kaikoura Cup time, of course, the lobster eating a lobster. I got beaten on the golf course, Michael, after making a statement that if he beats me, I'll give the game away. But he told me he hadn't played any golf and he hit one drive about 300 metres, so he lied to me.
It's nice of him that he was being protective of our female golfers by not getting it to the female team, just in case anybody was standing there. But look, just talking about AJ, and we mentioned Chanel Lawson earlier on, Trish Janelle was someone I spent a lot of time with. Our racing photographers right around the country do a wonderful job. It's largely a thankless task, and they do a wonderful job sometimes coming up under bloody cold circumstances. So to all our photogs, thank you. As a racing editor myself, I know without you, particularly for me with Trish in the north, we would struggle to get coverage into papers and on HRNZ. So to AJ and all those people who are the shooters out there, thank you.
Michael, it's been 4 years. 4 years, and when we started this off, and for people at home, they don't really understand that we do it out of a temporary studio, if you like, that actually is only designed for greyhounds. But I felt the need for the show to continue to spread the harness racing word without our family of sponsors. Just massive, massive support from them over that entire time. Many of them just coming on straight away saying, yep, no problem at all. You know, the likes of Breckons and IRT and New Zealand Bloodstock, and the list goes on and on. It's not fair if I just individualise them, but also the clubs heavily getting involved. But the team here in Christchurch have put it together, to Brittany, Everard, Wilsner, Shay, James, Darryl, to Patrick Chappell, who changed the schedule weekly for us, Michael, because we needed to make it work to get the absolute maximum out of our friends from Entain, and the TAB have been great supporters, giving us the odds. To Jason Patterson and Craig the Whale Thompson, who provided the footage over the last month or so. To the Matts, Peden and Cross, who've also been on the show. Without them, it just simply wouldn't be possible. Without your input and people at home, they know you get paid by the word. That's fantastic. That's why you say more than me. And to Glenn Bourne, who's based in Hawke's Bay. So we do it out of a Christchurch studio that's not designed for a show like this. It's produced out of Hawke's Bay and it arrives on your TV each and every week. It's been a massive effort, and it's something that I'm immensely proud of, and proud of the people that have been involved.
So you should be, Greg. So basically, the TAB stopped making shows 4 years ago during COVID. That's entirely their right. Heading forward, Entain loves making shows, and they will be the right people to make shows like this and weigh-in and everything else they do. Yep. But if you hadn't started this show, I know that weigh-in wouldn't have got off the ground either. So we would have had no magazine shows in New Zealand for the last 4 years. So, mate, well done to you. You went out and did this, which enabled David Ellis to do the idea of making weigh-in come back, and therefore it came back. And the TAB helped a lot. And they've helped a lot more in the last year under their new bosses. But now it's time for this show, which will come back next season, to be taken over by Entain because they're better resourced, because this really has been put together on the smell of an oily rag. So mate,
and it
well
needs
done.
a kick in the backside, Michael. It needs a refresh, no question.
you can't run a television show without any TV cameras, which is what we've been doing for 4 years.
Yep.
So look, it's been fantastic. Congratulations to you, mate, to everybody who's helped out, to all the participants. And also
well, they've been massive, because it's their show, Michael, and without them and their input to the show, and you mentioned John Dunn before, a guy like him who never says no. In fact, I don't have anyone who says no to helping us out.
Also, Alexandra Park helped out. Gary and the team at Alexandra Park and Nigel have helped out too at doing a job which they do professionally.
Emily, who took a lot of the photos.
Exactly,
and
a much reduced rate. So look, that's the end of the current box seat. I don't know what it's going to look like in the new season. That's Entain's job to find out, because they're resourced and this is what they do, among other things. They make shows. But mate, well done to you. You did this, and if it wasn't for this show getting off its arse in 2020 and coming back, which then rolled into weigh-in doing the same thing, there would have been no magazine shows in this country for the last 4 years. It's been fun to be part of, looking forward to seeing what comes up, and I hope the viewers who have enjoyed the last 4 years in any capacity come back and join us September, October-ish when it comes back again.
All right, that wraps up the 23-24 season of The Box Seat. Once again, a massive thank you to everyone for making it happen. But to you, Michael, have a great wee break over the winter period. We hope to both be back in about 3 months' time. But until then, it's bye for now. The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Harness Link, for all your worldwide harness racing coverage. Brecon Farms, New Zealand Bloodstock Standardbred. IRT, it's your horse and our passion. Garrard's Horse and Hound. Lincoln Farms, Renwick Farms, Harness Racing New Zealand. The clubs, Auckland, Cambridge, Addington and Ashburton, and the TAB.